Moderator standby.
Oke. Ya, moderator. Silakan, time is yours.
Kita mulai ya.
Ya.
Bang, ini Bang, coba. Bawahnya.
Mari, bisa kita mulai?
Ya, silakan.
Oke. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Our seminar is about to begin. Thank you very much for preparing yourself to join our seminar. Good morning to you all, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Hamdan syukran lillah, salatan wa salaman ala rasulillah, may yahdillahi fala mudhillalah wa may yudlilhu fala hadiyalah. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wa asyhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. His Excellency, the Chairman of Mandailing Natal State College of Islamic Studies, Dr. Torkis Lubis, LC DSS, respectable Head of English Language Education Department of Mandailing Natal State College of Islamic Studies, Dr. Amrita, MPD, honorable speakers for today's seminar. First, Mr. Mark Philip C. Paderan, PhD candidate. Ms. Nurbianta, MAED, MPD. And Mrs. Fitriani, MPD. And the Honorable all lecturers of English Language Education Department and all participants of this seminar. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Zulfikar, serving as your moderator of today's seminar. I'm very pleased to see you all here, and I would like to welcome all of you to this Saturday's online international seminar on remote English teaching for low-tech classes. The seminar is conducted by English Language Education Department of Mandailing Natal State College of Islamic Studies. First off, let me introduce to you all our wonderful speakers. Our first speaker today is Mr. Mark Philip C. Paderan, PhD candidate. Good morning, Mr.
Good morning.
Mark. He is a holder of BA in English at BCol University at College of Arts and Letters, Legazpi City. He is also a holder of Master of Arts in Literature in Educational Background at BCol University Graduate School. And he is currently earning Doctor of Philosophy in Literature at De La Salle University, Manila. His professional experience background include working as research journal advisor at College of Education at University of Nueva Cáceres, also as a college instructor at College of Education, University of Nueva Cáceres, and college instructor at College of Liberal Arts, University of St. Anthony. And our second speaker is Ms. Nurbianta, MAED, MPD. Good morning, ma'am.
Yes, good morning.
Ms. Nurbianta comes from Brau, East Kalimantan. She is currently working as English lecturer at Muhammadiyah Islamic Education Institute. She is also working as an author and an activist. She's a holder of bachelor degree from Muhammadiyah Islamic Education Institute and a master degree in English education from Universitas Ahmad Dahlan. She is also a holder of Master of Arts in English Education from University of St. Anthony, Philippines. And our third speaker is Mrs. Fitriani. She's a holder of BA from UMM and a master degree from UNS. Her experience include working as a teacher at Language Center of UMM and 10 years of teaching experience at STKIP Muhammadiyah Aceh Barat Daya. What a wonderful seminar this will be. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before the presentation begins, let me brief you on how the presentation will be going. Firstly, I'd like to give the time to Mr. Mark Philip to present the material for about 15 minutes. Afterwards, I will give the same amount of time to Ms. Nurbianta for her presentation, followed by Ms. Fitriani with her presentation in another 15 minutes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, allow me to welcome His Excellency, Dr. Torkis Lubis, LCDSS, to deliver his opening remark. Please join me in welcoming the chairman of Mandailing Natal State College of Islamic Studies, Dr. Torkis Lubis, LCDSS, with a round of applause. Time is yours.
Thank you, President Mr. Zulfikar. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa alihi wa ashabihi wa man wala. Wa ba'd. Dear speakers, organizing committee, all participants, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning.
Good morning.
Firstly, I want to provide some information about Stein Medina. Stein Medina became government university 2 years ago, and it had only 2 departments. And Alhamdulillah, now we have 16 departments, such as English education and Arabic education department and others. We have more than 500 students, and we had more than also 135 governmental lecturers, and the majority of them are young people, energetic and enthusiastic. The participants in our seminar are lecturers, students, and researchers from different universities in Indonesia. Finally, I want to thank you again for your interest and participation, especially speakers, Mr. Mark Philip Paderan from Philippines. Good morning, Mr. Mark.
Good morning.
Madam Nurbianti from State Muhammadiyah East Kalimantan. Good morning, Madam. And Madam Fitriani from Stein Medina. Thank you again, and let's start our seminar with Basmalah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Many thanks. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Torkis Lubis, LCDSS, for giving such a wonderful opening remark. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite our first speaker, Mark Philip C. Paderan, PhD candidate. He will be speaking on the topic, Remote English Teaching for Low-Tech Classes. Mr. Mark, time is yours.
Good morning, everyone. All right. I would like to see my slide. Right. While still loading. Still loading. Ano kaya?
Loading ya, aduh.
All right, it's here. Okay. All right, to the Stain Medina organizers, morning. To my co-speakers, Indonesians who are listening right now, Philippine audience, University of Nueva Cáceres family, University of Nueva Cáceres students, a pleasant morning to everyone. Assalamualaikum wabarakatuh. Salamat pagi semuanya. My name is Mark and I'll be delivering a speech about a topic about remote English teaching for low-tech classes. Now, the situation nowadays that we are having is that we are facing pandemic, we're facing COVID-19, and this is a global crisis in health. But this concern is actually not just in the Philippines, but it's across the world. And as we face this, schools should not stop. Our passion for education should not be hindered by this health crisis that we're facing, but rather we have to pursue our vocation in giving and providing quality education to our students. Now, as we continue with our topic, the question lies with how will remote English teaching for low-tech classes happen? Now, there are objectives that we will be talking about, and first thing is about the status, students, strategies, and suggestions. These are the things that we will be talking about, in which we are going to identify the status of the faculty and students' connectivity, their gadgets, and other factors. Also, the students, we will communicate the changes. How are we going to communicate the changes and the modes of learning to help the students transition to remote teaching and learning? And also, I am going to present the various strategies in remote English teaching in tech classes and suggestions. We are to have a slight exchange of insights to further the improvement in remote English teaching to low-tech classes. But as we continue to talk about these things, there is what we call the new normal that we have to rethink in our mode of teaching. And one of which is understanding the key concepts that we have to learn in this topic about remote English teaching. First thing, when we talk about online teaching and learning, this pertains to, next slide, please. Right. This pertains to the distant learning using the online internet access through the different gadgets that we're having. And the remote teaching classes, it's a distant learning, but the concern is this remote teaching applies low-tech classes wherein the students do not have gadgets to use. Okay, they do not have enough access to the internet and to the learning management system. Also, terms such as synchronous and asynchronous learning. Synchronous pertains to the real-time teaching to the student in order for the teacher and the students to meet at a certain time, while asynchronous learning is more on learning for the students, wherein they are self-paced and they have enough time to
Halo,
continue
Pe.
with learning and
Abang
to
kan
answer
handle PowerPoint nih. Yang
some
itu
things.
orang tuh yang
And as we
partisipan yang
face this COVID-19
yang mood itu,
pandemic,
yang mood di-unmute aja
education
yang
must
nggak penting.
continue, and we should not be stopped by this concern that
Okay.
we're having. So for our next slide, you can see there a box. To embrace the new normal and adjust to the new demands, because this blessing in disguise, we could see that this transition in remote teaching would lead to a new opportunity for the students to learn, for the students to improve, and as well as for the faculty to embrace new things. Now, let's talk about the status. First things first, that whenever we talk about the remote teaching, we have to consider that the students do not have their enough access, enough connectivity. And on the next slide, it is important that we have to take a look at the situation in the educational institution. The higher educational institution have an adjustment, a quick adjustment on the things that we're facing. And one thing that we have to look into is the status of our faculty members, that we also have to adjust. We have to know the status of our faculty members as to how are they properly oriented in this kind of transition. If the students will transition into the remote learning, then the faculty members should also transition, and they should be given their enough also the emotional things, that the emotional um, support that should be given to them. Also, the teacher should look into the needs of the students so that the teacher and the students would connect with each other. We have to know their status of connectivity, their gadgets availability, their financial resources, as well as the psychological preparedness and health condition. Knowing the status of the students would allow the teacher and the students to have a good relationship with each other. Now, for the second point, we are going to look into our students' concern. We have to communicate to them the changes that we will be having. These changes that we are facing, the students should be prepared as to how they would adjust to these changes, because they too are still in the process of accepting and embracing this kind of transition. Now, these students should be well oriented with the mode of teaching. They have to be taught how to use this certain learning management system. They have to be taught as to how to condition their mind, because in the behavioral theory of classical and operant conditioning, it is important that the students should understand first how this transition would happen in order for them to purely, and then for them to embrace the importance of transitioning to this remote learning without any hesitation. And also, the teacher should teach the students as to how they are going to fix their schedule, as to how to discipline themselves to allocate schedule and certain learning that they should be allocating for this subject, for next subject, and for this subject, so that when they continue with the distant learning and remote teaching and learning, they would be able to organize themselves, that even though they are just in their houses, they would be able to continue learning with discipline, learning with fun, and learning with enjoyment. Another is, let's go back to the previous slide. To the previous slide, please. Okay, another is the acceptance and adjustment. It is important that the students must accept first these changes so that they would cooperate and they would be part of the learning. And then through that, there would be productivity that we will be expecting from the students without any hesitation and without any rumbling. Okay. But aside from this, the students this remote teaching actually would benefit a lot for the students factor. A study of Actor in 2013, on the next slide, please, it says there that remote teaching brings out the professional and personal development. In his study, he mentioned that through this remote teaching, the students would be able to be motivated when they truly understand how this learning would take place, and then how they would be able to connect to the teacher, and also they would be able to improve themselves in their time management because they would be disciplined in doing their schedules, and an independent learning and independent development in their skill would actually happen through the remote teaching. However, there are some concerns because how about those students who do not have enough access to the internet? There are students who do not have internet connectivity at all. How can they be part of the learning without this access to strong access to the internet connection? Now let us move on to the strategies. I have researched several strategies, but not all strategies would benefit the students. Next slide, please. All right. Now for the strategies, it is important that for our students, for our teachers, it should not be one size fit all. It doesn't mean that in other school, in other country, they are using this strategy, then we will immediately adapt it. What we have to adapt and the strategy that we have to use should be, um, should answer the need of the students and would be able to address the learning difficulty of the students. Now, if we're going to look into the next slide, we can see here that I've enumerated 4 things in which would guide us how to go about with the strategy. First thing, connection with the students would start with the messaging app. So effective communication is the key here. And also we'll be talking about the learning management resources, which is simply useful and accessible both for the teacher and the students. Another is that the use of books or modules or other text references or ebooks that would be beneficial in the learning of the students, and a different way of assessing the student learnings, which is different from the traditional, and we would still be able to know how authentic, okay, the learning of the students through the different activities or through the different assessment modes that I'll be presenting. On the next slide, let's talk about the messaging app. It is a must that we have to connect with the students. It is important that as we learn, as we continue to teach, we have to have a strong connection with the students so that they would be able to feel that they're part, that the learning is important. Now, first thing that we have to do is to start with what is accessible in the learning or in the messaging application. In the Philippines, we usually use Facebook Messenger, but I think in Indonesia, we used to have WhatsApps. And then in other countries, it's Telegram and Viber. So we have to think of what is accessible in the messaging app, and we have to create a group, okay? We have to agree first with the students, and then after agreeing with the students with that, this is the application that we have to use. Number 2 is that a group has to have this accessibility, and we should not use WhatsApp at the same time, Messenger at the same time, another messenger. We have to choose one. And then after which, we have to conduct survey on the status of the connectivity of the students, because we need to know if how many are able to access, how many are available, how gadget availability, because there are some cases that in a family, there are 3 students in one family, but they have only 1 laptop. So how are they going to access with the learning if they cannot afford to, connect at the same time? Another, establish faculty support to students with difficulty through concrete communication and through continuous follow-up with the students. What is good here in this remote teaching is that we will be personal. We will personalize it in terms of connecting with the students, because we can message them one by one for us to know how are they going, how are they connecting with the lesson, and we can have privacy and confidentiality in knowing their concerns and their problems, because we have this messaging app in which we can connect through private message, or it is easier also for the faculty to send the task immediately through the messaging app by sending the task every week or every month through the messaging app, okay, through a group that we will be creating. So that's how important effective communication is. The main concern here. The more that we clearly communicate, the more that we clearly translate to them the learning, the more that they would appreciate the learning that they have. Another is the learning management resources. Now, for the learning management resources, we have to choose what is simple and accessible and needed, not the trending. There are some schools in other country that they use actually Lark as their learning management system. They actually, some schools are utilizing this another learning management system. But what if the students do not have any connectivity, internet connectivity? How would the learning take place? So when we are, it is a reminder, it's a good reminder for each one of us that we have to teach not to impress. Instead, we teach them because we want to let them learn, and the quality of learning for the students would be there. Now, the learning management resources should be accessible to various status of connectivity, because it is important that there will be no students that would be left behind, and altogether they would learn and they would continue to become productive in their learning. And as they create that learning management system, it is followed up by a group in order for them to have a concrete connection in communication. And the learning management system is like a substitute for the Blackboard, a substitute for the submission of the different learnings. Say, for example, you can make use of Google Classroom, or you may use of Facebook, as simple as that. Another, when we finally come up with the learning management resources, we should not shift from one learning management system and after a month we will shift to another because we think that it's comfortable with another learning management system. We just have to stick to one so that the students would not be confused with the usage of the management resources. Also, we have to create house rules for the students so that they would be able to know their limitations and they would value the respect for the teacher and therefore their co-students. And also they would be disciplined as to how to use the social media or the learning management system without disturbing other students who are focused in the learning. And the best thing here is that when we use some learning management resource that would fit all students, feedback is the most important for them. The more the teacher would give feedback on every activity, on every output that they submit, the more that they feel valued, the more that they would be interested in learning, because they will continue to study and be determined learn and then to continue studying because they know that their teacher are reading their outputs and they know that their weaknesses and then their strength. Let me cite an example. In my class, I usually use in my survey of English and American class, on the next slide, please. What is very common in our country is the use of Facebook. And we have the use of Facebook free data in which we can access Facebook without buying a load for the data access. And that is the Facebook, okay, that we use. Now, I created one group for a student, and after which the discussion thread would happen through the Facebook. So we had our reports, we have our submission in this Facebook group because once we upload our submission, it's all there. I post a question and then All the comments of the students would be their answers. And then our follow-up is through Facebook Messenger. I am not advertising Facebook, but this is the most accessible and one thing that you may use in your country as your mode of teaching. So this is how it, but the instruction here should be clear and should be detailed so that the students would not be, so the students will not keep on asking questions. Everything should be placed in that Facebook group. So let's move on to other. Another is the book. A lot of us is, let's move to the next slide. All right. Another thing is the use of books, modules, ebooks, and other references that we may use. Okay, we have textbook in our classes, and this is also effective in teaching the students. I remember in Pakistan, there is a study that in Pakistan during the war, when there were still war in the Middle East, the learning still continue through radio, through television, and those are the things that they're using. The students would just listen during the specific time so that the learning would take place at the specific period of the subject. So that's through radio. But here, it is also good to use books, modules, or ebooks. So how are we going to do it? The teacher is away and the students are in their houses. So it is important that all students must have this hard copy or soft copy of the books or the textbook or the module and ensure that everybody is at the same page. How are we going to do it? We are to utilize a messaging app in which we are to communicate to them that for this week, we have to read page 200 to 210. And we are to answer the activity, and each answers would be taken picture and be sent to you through Messenger or through the messaging application, or it may be sent through a Google Drive so that everything would be in one chunk. Okay, the teacher may assign and communicate weekly assignment for the students as to what page to read, what task to do, and also the detail on how to submit it. So books, ebooks are also effective in using this in teaching during the remote English and also remote English teaching. Another, the teacher has to understand the pacing of every student and has to have longer working period. We should not pressure the students by giving them 24 hours to answer a specific textbook, because in using books and modules, we are actually to use the asynchronous mode of learning in which the students should be given ample time for them to answer, to analyze the text, because they too have other subjects and they too have different tasks in their houses in which they cannot insert their time for the textbook all at the same time with their students. So ample time should be given, and the teacher should adjust the deadline and should be given them enough time to answer. After the submission of the students, the teacher should give feedback. Feedback is important because the students would know that the judgment of the teacher or the answer, the things that they need to improve on are these things. So feedback would allow the students to evaluate themselves. Feedback would allow the students to know the weaknesses and strengths that they have. And this would allow them to grow even more as a person. And lastly, for the assessment, let's go back to the previous slide before the messaging app. For the assessment, go back to the previous slide, please. Before that slide, please. Okay, before that. All right, for that, let's go back to previous slide. Hello? Previous slide, please. Before that. Okay. Now, for the assessment, let me continue. Okay. Before that.
Suggestion.
Before that, please. For the assessment. Okay, let me continue anyway. For the assessment of the students, it is important that it should be authentic problem solving and critical thinking. But yeah, that's it. Okay, for the assessment. So how can we do the authentic assessment or problem solving assessment or critical thinking assessment with the students when it is remote, when the teacher is working from home and the students are in their houses? So there is a bit of transition both for the teacher and the students, because the teacher has to think of a task that would not allow the students to cheat, that would not allow the students to communicate with other classmates that these are the answers and these are the answers. So I think we have to do away with the use of quizzes when it is for the valid assessment. Maybe for self-assessment, quizzes would be good. But in terms of this remote teaching, it is important that the students would be able to do tasks that they would learn from themselves, such as essay writing. Another would be quizzes. Another would be oral quizzes. Okay, we can also have a video and then it would just be sent, or we can also use other critical thinking assessment for the students without the use of online or without the use of communicating with other classmates to share their answers. So the teacher should be creative as much as possible so that the assessment would be authentic. All right. And for the last few slides is the suggestions. Now, there are different and there are various ways in order for us to improve our teaching. At this point in time, there are few studies about the use of remote teaching and the validity of other remote teaching strategies in different countries. This just started when this pandemic crisis that remote teaching has resurfaced, and this remote teaching has been seen as a concern that we have to research on. Now, it is important that as teachers, as educators, we need to continuously communicate, continuously research, do a lot of researches as to how we're going to improve our teaching to these students. Now, I've listed a lot of samples here, suggestions here on how to improve our learning through free resources, how to become effective in teaching, and what are other applications that we might explore, even though there is um, an offline reference through other references. And I have cited here a lot. And you may choose from open educational resources down to the different learning resources and materials that we might explore on in the future. So as we continue to learn and as we continue to learn in this remote teaching, it is beneficial that each one of us should continue to have connection from one country to another, from one strategy to another, and it should be disseminated to each one of us so that we would be able to adjust with the new normal that we are facing. It is important that we have to put into the priority, we have to prioritize that the value of education is very important, and we should not stop from delivering quality teaching and learning both to our students. So these are my references. You may look into that for the next slide. And for the last slide, I would like to thank everyone for listening and for participating and listening to my discussion. Again, my name is Mark from University of Nueva Cáceres, and my email is there. You may contact me for some queries, and we can have talk about a lot of things about education. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Mark. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you also.
For second speaker, I would like to invite Ms. Nurbianta, MAED, MPD. She will be speaking on the role of educational technology in going beyond COVID-19 boundary on English teaching. Time is yours, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Firstly, I would like to thank that I have given the chance to deliver my presentation this morning, and I'm going to present the material in these occasions about the role of educational technology in going beyond COVID-19 boundary in English teaching. Help me to the next slide. Next slide, please. What is educational technology? According to Anderson, technology is an equipment used to clarify message and allow interactions among students toward a message. Educational technology is the use of technology to improve education. Educational technology is the systematic, iterative process to designing instruction or training used to improve performance. And educational technology is sometimes also known as instructional technology or learning technology. Educational technology consists of design and environments that engage a learner and reliable technique or method for engaging learning, such as cognitive learning, strategies, and critical thinking skills. Technology is a body of knowledge used to create tools, develop skill, and extract materials. It is also the applications of science, the combinations of scientific method and material to meet an objective to solve a problem. The role of technology in the current COVID pandemic conditions. Teacher in this new environment will become less as instructor and more as orchestrator of information, giving the students the ability to turn from the knowledge into the wisdom. According to Division of Higher Education's UNESCO 2002, the teacher's role in integrating technology for instructional. Teacher is being a facilitator, collaborator, mentor, coach, director, and learning partner. Teacher can provide choices and great responsibility for students to experience learning activity. Teacher and administrator need to cultivate and maintain the students' interest in the material by showing how this knowledge applies in the real world. Through this slide, I'll show you the mandate of 21st century education and the potential of technology in learning. As a teacher, should be able to build knowledgeable communities that have ICT and media literacy skill, problem-solving skill, effective communication skill, and collaborative skill. United Nations 2002. Besides the potential of technology in learning, a teacher who can exploit the technology, it will be able to expand learning opportunities. Technology can improve efficiency. Technology will improve learning quality. The teacher can facilitate skill formations, encourage lifelong learning, reduce gap on digital medium. Establish ICT as an important part of effort to improve the quality and equity of educational programs, especially 9-year secondary educations. What kind of learning strategy through technology? The teacher can apply resources-based learning strategy, case problem-based learning strategy, simulations-based learning, and collaborative-based learning strategy. The differences between technology and conventional approach use and technology and constructivist approach use. In conventional approach, technology is delivery vehicle for instructional lesson. Technology serves as a teacher. But in constructivist approach, it is partner in learning process. Technology is learning tools to learn with or what about what kind of material and information we got, not from what kind of the tools we use in teaching and learning process. Whether used from the traditional or constructivist point of view, when used effectively, it is increases students' learning, understanding, and achievement, but also augments motivation to learn, encourages collaborative learning, and supports the development of critical thinking and problem-solving skill. Sasser and Fagnano, 1999. And then in this slide, show us a kind of technology we can use for helping to teaching and learning processes like computer, projector, or mobile phone, and many other kind of tools. Next slide. Technology also provides assistance in creations, administrations, and implementations of the following. First, for visual aids. For example, for the teacher who will teach about the rain cycle, the teacher just explore from the internet, so the teacher can show the picture which has live dimensions. And then recording and computing grades, and then communications and facilitate distance educations. Proper implementations of technology in the classrooms give more control of their own learning and tends to move classroom from teacher-dominated environments to ones that are more learner-centered. Russell and Schwartz in 1999. The last slide. Okay. Based on my explanations before, let me invite you to believe that the teacher who cannot be replaced by the media, but the teacher who don't master the media can be replaced. I think that's all for my presentations. Thank you very much for your listening, and thank you so much for your attention. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Ms. Nurbianta, MAED, MPD, for your presentation. Now our third and final speaker, I would like to invite Ms. Fitriani, MPD, for her presentation. Time is yours.
Can you everyone hear me? Is everything okay with my voice? Is everything okay with my...
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's a bit clearly.
Okay, thank you. I think I got some internet connections problem. So if it stops suddenly, I hope you can get me or sit and take it better. Thank you, Pak Zulfikar, for the time. Assalamualaikum, everyone.
Waalaikumsalam.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to meet you in this webinar because I know that I have an opportunity to confide my teaching problem and to share my experience with you and to get some ideas and also discuss this thing to improve my teaching. I hope also that you can improve your teaching. Well, without further ado, I just want to get started. The COVID-19 pandemic has forced us to turn from face-to-face learning to virtual classroom, where teaching is undertaken remotely and on digital platforms, such as Zoom or Google Meet. However, online teaching is not always best alternative for any learning environment. Its usage relies on steady internet connections and working technology. We know for sure that steady internet connections is the vital things in doing video conferencing. And this is why the reason I think it's really crucial for us to gather here today to discuss how to teach English remotely in a low-tech classroom. Can you move please to the next slide? Yes. A big clarification about low-tech class. A low-tech classroom is a class with insufficient digital tools and limited internet access. We know that not all of our students has stable internet connection. Not all of our students has computer or laptop. Not all of our students has or can afford a huge amount of internet data packets that they can join video conferencing. These three students' problems make it impossible for us to force them to join a video conference learning activities. And this is also important for us to rethink of using another platform rather than using Zoom or this such kind of video conferencing for virtual classroom. It's wise, I think, for us to find out a platform that are compatible with their problem. This is really crucial because we need still to run the class and help our students to keep learning progress. Next slide, please. Well, if we are in these positions when the students have a limited an issue in internet connections problem, based on British Council Teaching English, there are still some platforms that we can use for teaching low-tech class. The first is telephone call and the second is a mobile messenger app. Telephone call is an emergency old-fashioned communications tool that we can use to reach the students with no internet access. Maybe, yes, they have a smartphone, but with no data packets, it's impossible for them to connect with us, to get information from us. So it's time for us to reach them with a telephone call and then inform them what material that we are going to give them in the learning activities. And this still can help them to get in touch with us and then to join also the learning process. The second is mobile messenger app. There are so many mobile messenger apps that we can use. Actually, there are KakaoTalk or Facebook Messenger, but WhatsApp is the most and the best recommended one. Why? Simple. It's because everyone uses WhatsApp, or student has WhatsApp, and using WhatsApp, the data package is not as much as when we are using a video conference call, just like what we are doing now. So the problems related to the limited internet access can be solved with this type of platform. So the rest of our discussion will be related closely with using WhatsApp to teach to teach English remotely in a low-tech classroom. Get to the next slide, please. Right, there are three things that we can get to start it before we teach our students in WhatsApp group. The first is find out students' online learning problems. We know that our students have experienced or have joined some online learning, and we know that they might probably face some problems in that online learning activities. It's important for us to ask maybe the leader of the class some information, specific information, what kind of learning problems that they are experiencing. This is important for us to decide what teaching approach and learning instructions that are going to applied in the classroom by using WhatsApp group. After deciding the teaching approach as well as the learning instructions, now we are ready to create the WhatsApp group. This WhatsApp group, it can be in two types, can be restricted and open to all of the members. But for me, too many group for students is not effective. I think one group with open to all of the members to post is the best recommended one. After creating this WhatsApp group, it's important to tell clearly to our students that we're gonna use this WhatsApp group to teach them English through this pandemic, through this remote teaching. So they are ready to get this new normal situation so that they know that we are going to use this to teach them in this month. And it's also important to inform them that there are some rules in joining the class of this in this WhatsApp group. That it's awkward when the students post something personal or if students are having a private communications in the group. So it's important for us to give them the rules in posting, what kind of what students can share, what students can pause, what what they should do during the class activities. This is to help and to maintain the class so that the activities run smoothly. The next is sharing course outline. This is also important to tell them the schedule, but I think just following the academics, the schedule that have been arranged by the academic is good, because it's not effective if we change always the schedules. It will distract the students' concentrations and difficult for them to reach you at the time when the schedule is ready. And after doing these three things, so we are ready to go to the next thing, that is the learning activities. And the biggest issue that we are going to discuss here is how to manage learning activities. There are 4 points that I point out in these slides. The first is lighten learning objectives. We know that we are now in the conditions that are not good for all of us. Being able to hang in this position is good for our students. So lightening learning objectives, maybe reducing the amount of learning objective by keeping everything simple, just focus more on the most basic one, is fair for them. I think it's not wise if we force our students to learn the same amount of activities just like when they are in the normal situations before the pandemic COVID-19 in the face-to-face real classroom. So this also will help them to make a learning progress and not to drain their energy. About posting materials. It's important for us to post materials just like audio, video, text, pictures, and so forth before a couple of days before the class start. This will help them, this will give them enough time to download the material and get ready when you are teaching in the schedule. We can imagine how it dangerous when the students have a limited internet connections problem, and then we just share the audios or the videos just before the class start. They will take a longer time just to download and cannot join the class activities. The next is varying activities by switching to some WhatsApp features. We know for sure that WhatsApp is not designed only for text messaging. When it also have a group call and then a conference call. If we just ask the students to have discussions and then asking questions, and then the students answer questions, and then again asking questions, and then the students again answer or questions, the discussions will be so much boring. So another kind of activity should be involved in this class. One of the most interesting things is by using video conference, a limited video conference. When you think it is possible to do a video conference with some of the students, or it is good to do, because personally, I teach speaking and I call some of the students conferencely, and I'm doing it. Speaking practice with them. I know they're spontaneous speaking, and our students found it interesting. The learning activities become more engaging. But when you think if video conferencing is not possible to do, we can still have another option. That is by using a group call. WhatsApp features enable us to do a limited group call with some students without demanding a huge amount of data packets, so that we can practice speaking or practice listening, or maybe doing a little discussion, just like a group discussions with them. This is also interesting. The next is personalized student stats. As what Mr. Mark said, that online teaching, excites students to be a bit chitty. They tend to just copy another student's answer and just post it to the timeline or something like that. But if we personalize the student stats, it will reduce the probability that the students to be chitty. For example, if we want to if we share a video and then we want the students to respond to all videos, avoid questions with required students to have a similar answer. For example, instead of asking how many persons that you see or that is involved in the video, we can use a question just like this. What do you think about the person in the video? What characters in the videos that you think is the most interesting? This kind of specific and personalized questions will excite students, will require students to respond differently. And this will be a good information also for other students to make a progress. In personalizing students' tasks, another important thing is also to give a private feedback. Yes, I do really agree with Mr. Mark that feedback is really important. But in a personalized, when we personalize student tasks, it's better for us also to give a personal private feedback. It's inconvenient when we give corrections to our students' tasks, and then it is openly known by all of the members of the groups, and then students will get discouraged. So if we give a personal private feedback in a private chat with them and give them some corrections, they will be very happy to make corrections and do not get discouraged. So in short, learning objective, make everything simple as post Maghrib before class, and then vary activities, also personalized student tasks will help us to manage the learning activities run smoothly. Then next, please. Okay, here is the biggest issues in our discussions. It's about challenges. Yes, there are always challenges in teaching, especially in online teaching, because online teaching is not easy to conduct. There are three issues that I spotted here. The first is monitoring students' attendance, flooded charts, and eye streams. The biggest issue, the first, we know that unlike in video conferencing, that we can see the student's face and see and see them in the classroom. Using WhatsApp will not enable us to see them whether they are attend a class, whether they are still there or not. But we can still do some. I think this will contribute to you to monitor their attendance. In my class, in my speaking class, I always check their attendance list before I start the class and before I finish the classroom activities. Not only that, I also call them or invite them to get involved in the classroom. I will call them randomly, students A, students B, students C, randomly, so that they realize that I always monitor them. I always checking their attendance. And sometimes I say that I know you with, even though I didn't see your face. And by doing this, I still keep in touch with my students. And my students know that I'm trying to reach them all the time. The second is about flooded chart. Yes, if we ask, because in the timeline of WhatsApp, the students, for example, if you say Assalamualaikum, and then all of the students say wa alaikum salam, again and again. But that is normal. And the things is when we deliver important informations, and some students still giving text messaging. So tell their students that it is important to consider about turn taking. Tell your students to see the timeline carefully and then respect others' turn taking. When a student respond to a questions, tell them to be patient, and then when students finish with their response, and they can respond. And this turn taking management will help your timeline, your WhatsApp timeline will be more organized. The last is eye strain. We know that learning online is draining energy, and it's eye tiring. Sometimes students get really exhausted because they have to see on the screen for a long time. So it's important for us also to create an activities which not only require them to focus on the screen. We can do something. We can ask them to do another activities which not require them to do so. For example, in playing a game, for instance, you can ask your students to find something blue around them, or to find something that they like, to find something that is small. They will go around and find something that you want, and then take a picture of it and upload it in the post. These activities will give them a break from seeing screen all the time, and also giving them some times to get relaxed. And do that, these activities will also get them involved happily and still enthusiastic to join your class. So I think this is, oh yeah, the last slide. Well, everyone, I get this old topic is from British Council Teaching English. There are many more related articles related to teaching online. So if you want to get some references of how to teach online, practically you can just go to this website and get some PDF article to be your teaching reference. I think that's all that I can share with you. Hope that you can give some ideas and also can have discussions to improve our teaching. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome, and thank you, Ms. Fitriani, for your wonderful presentation. And the end of Ms. Fitriani's presentation also marks the beginning of our question and answer session. But I would like to share you guys something. Or probably later. What I was meant to share was the link for the e-certificate and also the invitation for our next seminar, which will be held on Monday. But before that, I would like to invite the first questions from the participants. You can raise your hand if you have any questions. I think we have the first question from Mr. Arifin Borneo Tarakan. Pak Ari, can you please unmute him so you can ask the question directly? Mr. Arifin?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm here.
You can go ahead with your question. Can you please introduce yourself first, your affiliation,
Okay.
plus to whom your question is addressed, please, sir?
Thanks the question. Thank you. That's question for all panelists, because this is a very important question related to the topic that you have presented. The first one, I think they can set it together, because that as a seminar we can set it together. Maybe the other panelists can answer the question, or the other panelists have different point of view as on my question. The first question is what have inexperienced teacher done in passing area that have a low technology, and how do they have prepared lesson plan in making their class more effective with low tech Did you follow all the standard competence or basic competence from national curriculums? Or what a problem that you face in the real classroom interactions? And the last question is, I think you have written down in the chat, why didn't teacher provide alternative learning material in increasing student understanding or the students' achievements? I think we can share to my question to other panelists. Maybe they have a different point of view. Thank you for the moderators.
All right, thank you, Mr. Arifin. We have quite a lot of questions in a go. Yeah, all right. So your questions was, what have inexperienced teachers done in facing area that have low-tech classes, and how do they prepare lesson plan? Okay. And how about the standard competencies and basic competencies? Are they all followed? And why did not teachers provide alternative learning materials? Okay. And how was authentic assessment conducted in low-tech classroom? Those were all your questions, right? Okay, thank you. All right, now I would like to invite the second questions. Participants can raise their hands if they have any questions.
All right.
All right. Miss Dina Sharifa, I think, has a question. Pari, can you please unmute her? All right. You can go ahead, Miss Dina.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Zulfikar. Is it my voice clear to you?
Clear and sound. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. My question is especially for Philippine speaker, Mr. Philip. Is it right? Okay. My question is, in the new normal life after COVID-19 destroyed, after this, is it possible for us to apply all of the resources free that you have sent us in the beginning, at the beginning of your slide before? That's my first question. And for the next question is for Ms. Fitriani, because not Ms. Sorry, the third speaker. What have you done? I mean, did you some of applicable method when you find some of our students at Stein Madina in the in the remote area, something like in Muara Batang Gadis, and then Batahan, and such other area that very not touching by internet. I think that's my questions. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Can I clarify the questions, Mr. Zulfikar?
Yes, go ahead.
Do you mean that there are some areas with no internet access at all?
Yeah. When you I mean, there are some of our students derived from and comes from remote areas, something like Muara Batang Gadis, many of remote area, or many of our students derived and come from remote area. And what is have you apply? I mean, something like applicable method to teach your students? I mean, can you share your experience so we can have a new experience from your experience, of course.
Okay.
All right, we still have one more slot for one final question. I think Miss Wahyu Fitrina Devi here has a question. Wahyu Fitrina Devi.
Okay, mister, is it clear about my voice there?
Yes, but I cannot see you.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, there you go. Go ahead.
So I wanna. It is an honor occasion for me to join in this group. I'm Rina from Islamic Educational Management program study. So our focusing is how to manage an education and how to manage a learning process in a class. So I want to ask to Miss Fitriani. You have given presentation to us about the challenge that the teacher face. So there are things that I get it, but the problem that we always forgotten from the teacher when do online learning system is we always forgot to building the character of our student. So I want to ask to you, is it okay as a lecturer we can teach our student well? For not for the teacher. The teacher the hard one that it is so hard for the teacher to giving evaluation about the character of the students. So I wanna know from you how for us as a teacher to building a character for the student in online learning system. That's it, Mr. Zulfikar.
Character building during online learning. Was that your question?
No,
All right.
I think that's all.
All right. All right. Now I would like to invite Mr. Mark to address the first question.
All right, thank you so much. Let me answer the first question. Stated here that for inexperienced teachers facing area that have low technology, so how do they prepare lesson? Now, it is important that the administration, the heads of the department have a bigger role in this, because the heads should be training their inexperienced teachers how to transition from the face-to-face to the online learning. So there is a bigger role of having webinars among the department faculty, so that they would have the training, they would address what are the concerns that they're having in transitioning to the this remote teaching. Another, in terms of lesson planning, it is important that the teachers should also be guided by their heads as to how to transition in terms of the competencies, in terms of the character building, in terms of the skill development. And there is a bigger role, again, in the school in guiding their faculty members, in coaching. There should be coaching from the head and then with the faculty members, and evaluate them as well, so that they would continue to adjust, because learning in this transition is not a one-time thing that they would be able to master it immediately. There is a series of trials and errors that they need to undergo, so that they would be able to, get the appropriate way of addressing the concern. And also, in preparing this lesson plan, there is a need to meet, of course, the standard competencies set by the national curriculum. Now, if the teacher, the alternative curriculum that the teacher should use in teaching should be the alternatives can be the textbook that you're using in school, provided that all students should have their own textbooks if you're going to use that. For ebooks, the students should have the materials that you would be using, and then you will be communicating with the students through the messaging app that you have agreed with. And also, for the authentic assessment, in the low-tech classroom, the authentic assessment might be an essay writing, in which there should be an oral presentation, a video oral presentation, because you would be able to see that the students is delivering him or herself orally, okay, the lecture or the proper way of expressing their ideas through the question. It can be written, provided that there should be, you should see that they should take picture of the essay that they have written, so that you would assure that they are the ones who did it. And then for quizzes and then exams, if there is a problem with the internet connection, then it is not good to have an online assessment. But if there is a good internet connection with the students, a timed online exam would also be okay. And now for the second question is that how can we use the resources after the, am I correct? The resources that I have provided on my last slide, you may still access it because it was given by the British Council and it was given under the education. I on the references that I given, the link is there and you can locate it and you can find the links on how to access the different online sources. And for the last question, how to manage the learning classes, it is important for you to assure or ensure the character building for the classes. There should be a rule. There should be a set rule for the class, a guideline for the students so that they would be able to to follow it. In case there are some students who would not be following the intended guideline, then it is important that you have to address them not in the group chat, not in the group, but personal assessment, personal evaluation by sending them private message through message or through online messaging. WhatsApp would be also good, but it should be private, not a group way of addressing the concern. Maybe that's it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mark. Now I would like to move to Ms. Fitriani to address the second question.
All right. If I'm not mistaken, it's from Ms. Dina. It's about the method or the approach for to how to teach students in a very low resource, I mean with no internet connections. We have to see the case first, what the specific problem happened with the students. Is do the students have no internet at all, or students has unstable internet connections, or students has no smartphone or something? If we have find out the problem that students are facing, then we can decide what type of method or approach that we can cope with the students. Let's say that if the problem is the students with unstable internet connections, means that we can still use a WhatsApp group, but in delay class. What I mean delay here is not as a schedule, but we can have a private communications with the students as long as they can reach the internet connections, they can get in touch with us, and then we give them some, we share them some material and discuss with them and give them the learning exercise, and then give them a practice and also a task and the feedback. This time, this private chat in a more flexible time will help them to keep in touch, to get, what is it, to make to keep going, to keep make them be able to get involved still in the learning process. And when the problem is students with no internet access or smartphone, impossible for them to use a WhatsApp group, we have no options. The last things that we can do is by a telephone call. We have shared a book before this remote teaching. I'm sure all of the teacher has a textbook or material that we have to share with the students. And in these conditions, we can call them, we inform them that they will have a private session, private sessions with us. We set the task, what the students should do, what material they are going to discuss with us, and then we call them and monitor them by doing a regular telephone call. And this is also good. I found myself in my class, I interviewed my student, I called my students one by one just to make a speaking practice, and they are very happy to do this. So when your students has no internet access at all, making a telephone call, setting a task, and also practice with them is really interesting. And your students found that really interesting too. Should I continue to the next question, Mr. Zulfikar? Hello?
Yeah, sorry. Actually, I was going to invite Ms. Nurbianti for the final question.
Oh,
or was it also addressed to you?
I think it's from Miss Wahyu Fitria.
It was also addressed to you, right?
Okay, it's about a character building.
Yes, go ahead then.
All right. Honestly, online teaching and learning is a big challenge both for us and our students. It's draining energy. It's not an easy thing to conduct. So we have to realize that we have limitation. Being able to get or to follow our online learning is just a good thing for our students now in this pandemic condition. So I think, as what I explained before, that lightened our learning objectives and keep everything simple is just the wise one. Is just the wise decisions. We can force the students to do the same amount of learning activities just like before. We can set or do our learning activities just like the same amount that we have done before. So we have to realize we have to keep everything simple so that the student can still join with us. And specifically for a character building, I hope that Ms. Wahyu Fitria explained it more clearly, or the specific thing about this character building. But if when Ms. Fitri means that this character building is about the students, for example, how to help students not to be cheaty or something, it's we have to be clear in instructions. We have to be clear in doing the class rules, and we have to personalize them. Teaching is not only about you delivering a lecture or speech, so we can get our students to get involved, engaged in every single learning activities that we are arranged during the learning activities. So I think by doing this, the students will get in touch with us and then still can join with us with the full of responsibility. I think that's all. Maybe the Mr. Mark or Ibu Bianti will add something about this.
Yeah, Mr. Mark, you're welcome to add anything.
Okay. Hello. Can I be heard?
Yes, yes, we can hear you clearly.
All right. Okay. For some who are also asking other way in addressing the concern in improving the speaking skills of English, even though they are non-English speakers, how would they improve in their speaking in remote classes? Maybe one thing that they have to do, what the teachers should have to do, as I did in my class, I created a group page in Facebook, and then I asked them to record themselves delivering a speech, and then they will be posting it in a group, and then the teacher will comment their feedback, or it can be private delivery of feedback so that they would also improve. However, there is a concern here that the teacher should also provide a lecture through asynchronous lecture, maybe a video. The teacher would record themselves delivering a lecture about how to create a speech, in order for the students to also do the same or to have a guide on how to deliver a speech. And then feedback is important so that the students would continue involving in the activity, such as oral speech or video, or they can have recorded video. Recorded voice of them delivering the speech, and the teacher would give their feedback.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's it.
Ms. Durbianti, you would like to add something?
Yeah, Mr. Zulfikar,
Yeah, would you like to add something?
maybe just a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, in these conditions, in pandemic positions, the people feel some difficulties in not only for learning but also in life. And this is the real experience, yes, real experience, because I also as a teacher that I teach in remote locations in remote area. Actually Brau is nearby Malaysia, and maybe in the first you said that my connection is rather bad. It's maybe one of the problem also. And the problem is not only about how to teach right now, but the main point is for my previous students maybe about their stomach. Sometimes they more difficult in eating. So I as a teacher, I cannot push my student for buying data besides they difficult to eat. So we just support our students, make simple in our teaching and learning process, because the more important is we have to uh, emphasize for the high order thinking skill, not for how many material we can deliver to our students, but how make our student have critical thinking. For example, we can give the simple material by share the picture or maybe video, and we invite our students to discuss together. I think it's more uh, valuable for our students than we give so many tasks or uh, demanded of our students for using so many kind of uh, technology, but the condition is very difficult. As like I said just now that their eating is more important than their data. Yes, this is
Their
real.
basic needs is more
Yes,
important.
this is real because my few of my students is it's very difficult in life. I think that's all. The point is we have to emphasize for high order thinking skill than how many material and how many technology we can deliver to our students. I think that's all.
All right, that's quite understandable. Thank you, Ms. Thank you to all the three speakers actually for the answers to the participants' questions. Now, I would like to remind all the participants again that this coming Monday, we are going to have another online international seminar. This time it's on English for Employment Prospects. We have quite wonderful speakers here. From Universitas Ahmad Dahlan Yogyakarta, we have Dr. DRA Hajah R.A. Nur Dodi Irmawati, and we have a speaker from Texas A&M University, United States of America, Timothy Walters, PhD, and from, this one is unreadable for me. Her name is Estrella T. Arroyo from, University of St. Anthony. And last but not least, we have Suadi MPD from Mandailing Natal State College of Islamic Studies. And the seminar will be conducted again on Monday, and acting as the moderator will be Ms. Rika Umrina Lubis, M. And I have also shared with you guys on the screen the link that you can visit to access your attendance list and your e-certificate. I have also shared it on the chat box. Okay. So, all right. So ladies and gentlemen, we finally come to the end part of this seminar. And before I close this seminar, I would like to take a few conclusions from what the speakers have presented. First, teach not to impress. It's necessary to find a resource that is accessible, not only to us instructors, but also to the students themselves. Second, teachers' roles can never be replaced by the media, but we have to keep in mind that teachers who show lack of mastery in media use will soon be replaced. And finally, in low-tech classes, enlightening learning objectives is one way we can do by focusing on the basic ones and by personalizing students' tasks. Again, as a moderator, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the three speakers for the informative and interesting presentation, and to all the participants for your kind participation. Hopefully the seminar will be of great benefits to us all. And please forgive us if there is any mistake we have made during the seminar. And again, thank you for all the participants, to all the speakers. And let's give ourselves a virtual round of applause. And finally, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, participants.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Assalamualaikum.
Bye for now, everyone. Thank you for still keeping in front of your computer for an hour and a half.
Terima kasih untuk semuanya. Go,
Okay,
go, Sain Madinah.
Mr. Dr. Turkis, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Ma'am Sonia Ali Robi, thank you very much.
Dari tadi angkat tangan, nggak dikasih. Dari tadi mau tanya.
All right.
Iya.
Maybe we can
Maybe
continue our discussion
for the next seminar.
It's for the special audience.
Most for next.
Oh my God.
Next, both of.
Okay. Terima kasih banyak.
Okay, thank you. See you on Monday.
Inshallah. Shukran, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. See you next time.
See you next time.
See you
inshallah.
too.
at
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum.